You're listening to The Upland Rookie, a podcast presented by Upland Brits. What is up, rookies? Welcome to the Upland Rookie podcast. This is episode 7. And I'm your host, Will Larson, and as always, this is presented by Upland Brits. What is Upland Brits, you may ask? Well, that is my Instagram page that hosts all my main content. That is really what got me started down this road of bird dogs and upland hunting, and eventually led into the podcast. So check it out. Just type it into Instagram or Facebook, wherever. At Upland_Brits. You'll see all my content, videos, photos, all that over there at the page. First, a word from our sponsor, Eukanuba Premium Performance Dog Food. The same approach means the same results. That's why Eukanuba reimagined a new kind of canine nutrition over 50 years ago, and why they continue to now. The new Premium Performance lineup harnesses the power of nutritional science to create formulas that hold nothing back. Check them out at eukanubasportingdog.com. Okay, a couple orders of business before we jump into episode 7. Brett writes in a listener question. Brett, thank you so much for taking the time to write in a question. I had a couple in my back pocket. I wasn't crazy about them, and Brett just messaged me a question late last night, and I'm recording this the next morning, so thank you. This is a great one. Brett writes, what are you carrying for your dog's first aid in the field and day to day? Well, great question. So I went over to my finalized vest. I took out my dog's first aid kit. I dumped it out on the workbench in front of me, and we're going to go through some of the items that are in the kit, what the kit is, and also just some of my general thoughts on dog first aid. And I'll actually start there. Knock on wood, praise God, I have not had to use a first aid kit on my dog in the field for any reason, ever. Again, knock on wood. Thank you, Jesus. But I'm just going to go through kind of what I picked up. But more importantly, if you have experience using a first aid kit, you had an injury in the field, something happened with your dog where you had to use your kit, what was helpful, what wasn't helpful, I would love to just hear your experience, hear some of the items that you used or maybe have never used, even though your dog has gotten injured. Would love to hear, again, more of your experience if you have had a trauma or something happen with your dog in the field. So again, this is a pretty basic kit that I have. It is a dead fowl trainer. I got it off of gundogsupply.com. On the little pouch here, it says First Canine Aid or First Aid Canine, pocket size. It's a pretty small kit. It fits really nice in the back pouch of my Final Rise vest. I've carried it for 3 years. Again, like I said, I've never used it. I'll go through some of the basic items that came with it, but also a few things that I added. Just over the years, talking to vets, hearing other people's experience on some different podcasts. So we'll start off with the booklet. I know that's not very exciting, but in this pouch, there's a little pocket size first aid guide. And this actually is pretty dang good. It goes through all different like kind of injuries and things, and just tells you like symptoms and treatment, how to take care of things. So I try to read this once or twice before every season. Pretty good. Eye infection, ear infection, cut pad, split or torn nail, heat stroke, fractures, hypothermia. So bleeding. So it goes through a couple different scenarios that you could encounter. Just gives you some basic, like, here's what to look for. Here's how to quickly address it. So actually pretty helpful. It has some good information. It's pretty small. Fits in the pouch very nicely. Also, okay, so we got surgical sponges that are in the pouch. We have some alcohol swabs, some other swabs, a prep pad. I don't know how to pronounce the first half of that, but some kind of prep pad. It has a pair of like surgical scissors. some more gauze and some tweezers. That could be good for pulling out like a thorn or something like that. The scissors maybe for cutting like a wrap or something like that. Cut to length. It has some like ankle wrap. It looks like it's blue, like ankle tape or ankle wrap. I don't know. Again, personally, if my dog, say, had like a fracture, something happened in the field, I don't know. Again, I want to hear your experience, but I don't know if I would sit there and wrap it up and then have him walk out or something. I would just probably pick the dog up, get him out of the field, get him out of the area, and go to the closest vet. So this could be handy for wrapping on gauze. Say you have maybe a big wound, something like that. Stuff it with gauze, maybe wrap this up. Again, I am not a vet. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just going through my own head. What would I do in those situations if I was out there? The other big factor, kind of the main reason I bought this kit, is it has a stapler in it. So this would be if your dog had a large gash or a wound that you needed to just kind of staple that skin up to buy you some time to get to the vet. Again, I'm going to have a vet on this podcast in the future. Before this hunting season comes, I will have a vet on. I already have one in mind. He doesn't know he's going to be a guest yet, but I'm praying he says yes. I actually heard him on one podcast long time ago. I think maybe in the first 10 episodes of the Project Upland podcast. You may know who he is, but anyways, all that to say, the stapler. That was, for me at the time I bought this, was a selling point. I said, hey, if something really bad happened, I think I would want to staple that dog up real quick and get him to the vet. Again, I'm sorry I'm saying this again, but if you have experience with a stapler even, I would love to hear your experience. Did you use it when your dog was gashed open? Did you not? Would love to hear. So it's pretty small. It's actually very small. Fits in the pouch really nice. What else is in here? Gloves. It came with, I think, 2 pairs of vinyl gloves or latex, whatever they are. I put like 3 more pairs in. I don't know why. I have like 4 or 5 pairs of latex gloves in this little pouch. So I'm going to be probably taking out. I'll just leave maybe 2 in there. I'll leave the original amount. Things I've added, a whistle. I don't know why. I don't use a whistle with my dogs. I just have a whistle in there. It's tied to a Leatherman. It's like a mini little Leatherman tool. I figured it's good to have an extra knife, an extra pair of tweezers, things like that. I tied a whistle to it, maybe as a safety thing. I'm not sure what I was thinking. Maybe if I get lost, maybe something happens, I can whistle, someone could find my location. Another thing I added, I heard this, I think it was on a Upchucker podcast with Travis Warren. He might have been interviewing a guest whose dog got caught in a foot trap, a trap for people are trapping foxes and coyotes, things like that. And so I put a pair of wire cutters in my first aid pouch. Now these wire cutters, I hear, again, I don't have personal experience, but on some of these foot traps, you can cut like the main wire and it can help pry that trap open to get your dog's foot out. So as soon as I heard that, I was like, I had an extra pair actually of wire cutters laying in my workbench. And I was like, you know what? With the extra weight, I don't really care. I'm going to throw them in the pouch and just let them sit there in case I ever need them. Again, never have needed them, thankfully, but they are going to be living in any of my first aid kits. I'm definitely going to keep a pair of wire cutters. So that's actually it. That's all that's in my first aid kit. I keep a personal human first aid kit in my truck at all times, Band-Aids, things like that. But I won't get into that right now. So just to kind of wrap up, that's what I carry. It's a little heavy to be carrying around, but again, I think the benefits of having some things just in case something happens is better be safe than sorry is my mentality. The other thing I cannot emphasize enough is just ask your vet. Ask your vet that you trust, that you go to, hey, what should I be carrying? What shouldn't I be carrying? Just ask your vet. I'm not a vet, clearly. I don't have trauma first aid experience. So there's some things I write down questions throughout the year. So when I go to different vet appointments, see my vet, I'll ask him, hey, like, what about this? Or what about, Benadryl after a rattlesnake bite? Like, that's a huge topic. I'm still not even sure on, do you give Benadryl after, sorry, Gage is whining right out the garage door. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Benadryl, things like that. Like questions as they come up throughout the year, write them down, ask your vet, consult a professional on what is going to be the best option for you and your dog. So I cannot stress that enough. And educate yourself. Read the first aid booklet with whatever first aid kit you buy. Don't just take the directions or the booklet and I don't need that. I know what to do. Take a look at it, read it. Again, there's some of these wipes in here that I don't even know how to pronounce them. I'm like, what the heck would you use these for? Well, it's going to be in the booklet. I need to clearly read over it again. So cannot stress that enough. Well, Brett, thank you. Thank you for writing in that question. Like I mentioned, I will get a vet on this podcast before the hunting season arrives, educate all of ourselves a little bit more on what we should or maybe shouldn't be carrying out into the field. I know Gun Dog Outdoors, I know they have a pretty beefy dog first aid kit. I know some guys are rocking that and enjoying it. I don't have personal experience with it, but it looks like a little bit more robust kit for sure. The one I got on Gundog Supply was, I think, around $50 or $60 maybe. Pretty minimal, pretty lightweight. Overall, it's been good to me. I've never had to use it. It just lives in my vest. But again, better to have some things just in case you might need them. Okay, are you ready to jump into today's episode? I sit down with my good friend, Matt Harrell. Now, Matt Harrell and I, we live a few minutes from each other. I've known Matt for a little over 4 years and met him when my wife and I moved out here to Colorado. Our families both attended the same church. We were in a small group together and really started hitting it off. Matt and I have done mostly waterfowl hunting together. Matt's a big waterfowl hunter. He's also a big elk and mule deer hunter. But pheasant and upland hunting is really his roots and his passion. You will hear it very clearly in this episode. Matt runs a couple amazing German Shorthair pointers, and the focus of today's episode, we really touch on public versus private land. I will say Matt loves public land. He hunts a lot of it. I'm primarily a public land hunter. But the private side, I think, is really key, is how Matt gains access to private land and how he maintains relationships with private land owners. So pay attention to some of the things that he shares in this episode. I know asking for permission on land can be scary and intimidating. I say that from experience, so really key in on some of the things that Matt shares. I got to see this firsthand over the last couple of years on some snow goose trips, on pheasant trips, quail, all that hunting with Matt and his dad. And how they do this it's kind of an art form, but I think it can be done by anyone out there. Don't be afraid, don't be nervous, knock on doors, but it's more about those relationships, building into people, and just getting to know them also. So Matt will share a lot more on that in this episode. So I've went on long enough, but last thing, the end of this episode, please stay tuned. I have a very, very special announcement. It's a giveaway and it's a big one. So stay tuned. The end of this episode, you're not going to want to miss it. I will share what I am giving away. So stay tuned. A couple things here. We're going to dive in. Put us on a map first. Where are you located? And then just tell us a little bit about, a little overview of who you are.
Sure. So I live in Lone Tree. So I live probably, 10 minutes from your house?
If that.
Yeah. So in Colorado native, one of the few unicorns left, one of the few natives in the state. But grew up hunting with my dad and his buddies. And primarily, I can remember early on hunting southern, like southeastern Colorado, like around Lamar.
Okay.
And now, there's not a lot of birds down there.
There's not.
So
there's not.
We slowly migrated and started going out to McCook, Nebraska, and work in that area. Imperial, and then obviously, like as we've started to get to know each other, hunting more up along that LC Grant, Madrid. Sure. So, we've hunted, northeastern Colorado. Yeah. So, just my whole life watching my dad hunt. And then that first time going out as a kid, bringing your BB gun.
Yes.
The coolest thing ever. And basically I was a retriever. We didn't have dogs. So I was the
You got your exercise?
Yeah, totally.
That's good, man. That's
So-
awesome. Okay, we're gonna get into a lot more with a little bit of your upbringing, how you got into hunting a little bit later. I actually want to start off with a little different direction here. Snow Goose 2021.
Oh boy.
J-
I thought we wouldn't
just
go there.
I know I've had some people just ask me randomly
Sure.
like, hey, how was your trip? I saw you guys went out there. Just give us a little recap, like what was the trip like for you? What made it different this year? Just share a little bit about.
So I guess if I had to say, it's been, as you witnessed, a weird 2 years, right? We had to cancel our 2020 hunt
Yep.
with COVID, which in hindsight was a great idea considering how they closed everything down, and leaving our families at that time probably was a bad decision. Not to mention last year the migration was very early.
Sure.
So we were missing a big chunk of it. So this year, we were all geeked out and excited. And I think, our timing was going to be good. And again, it's so hard to pick.
Yeah,
Right?
and again, this was my first year doing this, so
Yeah.
I was like following the lead. I'm just going off your reports
sure.
and everyone
Yeah.
else's is scouting reports. But yeah, so it sounded like it was going to be good.
It was going to be good. And then that week prior to our hunt, I don't know if you recall, but Nebraska, the temperature was like 80 degrees out there.
it was warm.
So it was very warm, and I think that really triggered a huge migration. And I think we further confirmed that speaking with landowners to get permission, is they were all saying, you should have been here last week.
Yeah.
That one guy, Zach, was
Yeah.
shot 160 in his
The
field.
week prior.
The week prior. Another guy that we spoke with, said they were flying low, just that the sky was covered with them. So I think that's always the challenge with snow goose is timing.
Sure.
If you're an outfitter and don't have kids, family, jobs,
All those
heck,
things.
you can do great with snow goose hunting.
Go out whenever you want. Yeah.
If you're throwing a dart at a calendar,
Sure.
and saying, hey, traditionally this has been a great week to be there, which historically, we've been hunting that area for 10 years. In that second to third week of March is great. But if you cross, I think I mentioned to you one time we went up there, woke up early, drove, went to the lake, they were gone.
Oh, jeez.
So we turned around and left.
Oh,
drove
really?
back to Denver.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
Adam and I did that.
Oh,
so,
gosh.
it's always, you got to see the.
It's a hit or miss, and there's no
hit or
guarantees. It
miss.
sounds like.
But I would say we had one okay morning.
It was our first morning.
Our first morning.
Like, everyone was pumped after that
Everyone was
morning.
pumped,
We were
yeah.
feeling good. We were seeing birds.
Yeah, they were working. They were decoying.
Yeah.
We could have used some wind. We could have used, maybe some warmer temps just to push. If there are any birds further south, that would have drove them.
Oh, sure.
But, we still got to have fun.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Shoot some trap and
For sure.
hang out. But it's, as you saw, it's a ton of work. For us, the work continued once we got home, having to clean the decoys.
So we'll kind of end on this. Share just a little bit about share about the thought process of that last field we hunted, and just share a little bit about why we set up on that last day given the weather. Okay,
So,
and then
yeah.
a little bit of the following items that follow.
Yeah, and so I'm no snow goose expert. I will say this though, like in hunting, snow geese for the past 10 to 15 years, and then hunting, dark geese and ducks, I found that snow goose, our best days are those hot, bluebird days, where it's 70 plus degrees, wind out of the south, and it's triggering a migration. We've had our best hunts in t-shirts. We've gone out dark goose hunting.
Sure.
And it's almost polar opposite, right? You want to hunt a storm,
Nasty weather.
weather, wind. Well, that last day, we were watching the weather. We knew it was going to be a blizzard in Colorado.
Yep.
And we were gonna be on the edge of it, and it's gonna be rain and wind.
Sure.
So I was looking at that wind. I was like, "Wow, this is gonna be great.
Yeah.
It's gonna drive the birds down. The cloud cover is gonna drive them down."
Sure.
As we all know, like these snow geese fly so high.
Yeah. Way
And
higher
they're
than I
so
thought.
spooky, and there's so many eyes on you. So I was actually really confident that last day,
Yeah.
despite knowing it was gonna be a total mud pit.
Yep.
That it was going to be just miserable to be out there.
Yeah, rain was going sideways.
Rain
it was going sideways. There's no doubt. There's no decoys. Just to paint a picture, decoys. So those silhouette socks.
Yeah, socks. Yeah.
They were just. I mean, maybe a half gallon of water in each sock.
Yeah.
And there were some drain holes, but the amount of rain that was getting in those.
Yeah.
Butts were to the ground. Like they were just
getting covered in mud.
Flopped over.
So that was. Yeah, ironically enough, that morning setting up, I was very optimistic.
Yeah.
We were close to the roost. I figured they wouldn't fly far, and it just didn't pan out. I don't think we maybe had one goose that decoyed.
That kind of decoyed. And then the one we all shot. Again, mind you, there is, I think, 6 or 7 guys shooting it.
Yeah. Not our strong.
I'm pretty sure I unloaded my gun. I'm not going to lie. Nope. Here he keeps going. So
an adventure nonetheless, though.
Yes.
It was fun to be out there.
It was a great hunt.
Yeah.
Awesome, Matt. So tell me a little bit, just catch us up. Like, what kind of hunting are you doing the most right now? I know I've known you for a few years now.
Yeah.
You do a little bit of everything. What's kind of your primary species you hunt right now? And just give us an overview.
Yeah. So, I hunt I like to hunt everything. Yeah. So, growing up, it was, I would tag along with my dad, and we'd pheasant hunt. As I grew older, my dad would always be coming back from elk hunts with his buddies. And I dreamed of, going with my dad elk hunting.
Sure.
So I must have been, 14 maybe, when I went on my first elk hunt with my dad.
Oh, nice.
And then, since then, it's kind of evolved. And I always tease with my dad about this is, as we get into snow goose hunting and setting out 2,000 decoys or even dark goose hunting, and you're waking up at 3 a.m. and driving out to a pit and sitting in 10 degree weather, like, why aren't we pheasant hunting?
Yeah. You've said that to me before. We've been dark goose hunting a couple years ago, and we're sitting in there on some chill days, and we're both like, I'd rather be out pheasant hunting.
Yeah.
And you've said this to me before. Your luck can change from field to field.
Oh yeah.
You're not sitting there, and I'm not knocking waterfowl hunting. It's awesome. It's a ton of fun. But you kind of can control your own outcome a little bit.
100%.
Like, hey, we're gonna go hit this field or knock on this door.
Oh yeah. And that's what I love about and you and I being just active is waterfowl's great. Like, I love watching geese and ducks just cup up and commit, and you've tricked them, right? Yep. You've fooled them. But there's something about like getting out in a field and just working and walking and just like pushing that extra mile.
Yeah.
Inevitably, you and I know very well it's that last field, the last day. I think you referenced the golden
last
hour,
edge
right?
of it. Yeah, the corner.
It's like, boom, you're rewarded with a point, and it's a big fat rooster.
Yep.
And,
even a hen point, I'll take it.
At that point,
if your dog,
exactly.
If your dog can get a point on, and it's a hen I don't care what it is.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
That you can drive home feeling
awesome
good about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about. So we've mentioned a little bit of your upbringing, hunting with your dad. Just talk about what was that. So with pheasant hunting specifically, with upland bird hunting, like what was that? What was that motivation, that excitement that really drew you to it? And also, was your dad the first generation to hunt? Did his grandpa hunt or his dad hunt? Like a little bit of that upbringing. Yeah. And then I want to end on kids, because I know you have a couple kids, and I know your son is kind of starting to get into that. So I want to finish off with, how do we get kids involved in this and get them into it?
Yeah. So, so my dad grew up, in the South, North Carolina. His dad hunted, but wasn't like an avid hunter.
Okay.
But I think just in he grew up in a small, like, rural area. So I think hunting was very common amongst like his buddies. So, I actually have my dad's first shotgun, which is a 410 single shot hammer.
Oh, wow.
In my gun safe right now.
Oh, nice.
Super cool. And he would go out and shoot quail and squirrels and whatnot. But yeah, so my dad, for me, I think, as a kid, again, when I'm saying like going out with my dad and his buddies, it was just that adventure of, for me, like carrying a BB gun was very exciting at that point,
Sure.
right? And, you know, getting just to hold like, you know, a rooster that they'd shot. That was just like a really like monumental, powerful. Yeah, it's just like, wow, this is incredible. And then I guess just the whole process between kind of watching the camaraderie amongst my dad and his buddies, and then how I kind of like fit into that, you know, with, because some of his buddies would bring their sons, and
Sure.
you know, there's just the whole the drive, you know, the excitement as a kid when you're waking up at, you know, we would wake up at 3, and we'd actually go to Binkelman, Nebraska.
Okay.
And we would drive out there and get, you know, into Binkelman around, you know, 6:30, 7:30. So as a kid, I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Just that adventure.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be snowing or whatever it might be. And then start walking and knocking on doors. So,
Sure.
you know, you and I have hunted several times, but my dad is the one, and his buddies is just that, you know, how to interact with these landowners, the farmers, and, you know, spark some type of relationship
Sure.
with them, and just kind of master that skill of, hey, we also can hunt public.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're going to knock on some doors and get to know these guys. And
Totally.
so, yeah, that you know, like, as a kid, I was always fascinated with it.
It just got you hooked. There was enough touch points. There was enough of that time with your dad, your buddies, your dad's friends.
Just incredible, yeah. And it's like you can remember, you know, when you transition from carrying a BB gun to, I had a pump, I still have it, an 870 Express 20-gauge pump.
Oh, wow.
Still my gun safe.
Nice.
And Jack will shoot with that, has a shorter stock.
Okay, nice.
And, you know, and I remember, like, I can remember Ron Peterson was the farmer.
Okay.
In Binkelman. I can remember that first rooster. You know, probably you can remember yours like it was yesterday.
Yep.
But this bird, the perfect, like, we didn't have dogs.
Sure.
But he held and popped up maybe 10 yards in front of me, and it was the classic, like, going away shot, one shot down.
Wow.
And, like, you know, my dad
Oh my gosh.
was, you know, almost in tears. I was like so excited. So those are all the things that, you know, for myself, for you, for everyone who's getting into pheasant hunting, it's more than just getting a limit of birds. It's being out in the country, being on a dirt road, sleeping in a dirty hotel. You know,
all those things.
All those things.
It's when you describe this to someone who maybe doesn't hunt, or even my spouse.
Right, exactly.
She's like, so what made the trip so great? And I'm saying, oh, just the dirt roads and everything. We were muddy and filthy. This hotel was a piece of crap.
Yeah.
And she's like,
I loved every minute of it.
Yeah. She's like, that sounds terrible.
And we walked 15 miles and we saw 2 birds.
Yeah, exactly.
And I missed.
I missed them all. 100%. Okay, so now let's transition into, you know, I have a couple kids, you have a couple kids. Like how can someone get their kids into this, and what are some of the things that you've maybe done to introduce Jack to it and your other kids?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I think, even for myself, it can kind of be. It can be a barrier sometimes if you don't want to do it wrong. You don't want to introduce them to hunting the wrong way. You want it to be natural as well. You don't want to force them. So what's some things that you've done to introduce your kids to it?
Yeah. So, you know, Jack is 8 now, 8.5. You know, I'd say ever since, you know, I think a big thing that you and I can obviously relate to and our kids are exposed to is just having hunting dogs in your house that aren't just hunting dogs. These are family dogs.
That's a great point.
90% of the time. But, you know, your kids know that this dog also serves a purpose out in the field. So I think that with my kids has always triggered something of interest for pheasant hunting.
That's really cool, yeah.
And so that, and just, you know, we've introduced, much like I'm sure you have, like BB guns, and I always make a point to, if I come home from a pheasant hunt, my kids are the first one to see the birds, and they love it. So I'm not sheltering them in any way where, oh, don't let them see a dead bird.
Sure.
Don't let them, you know, they'll come out, and I've got, you know, pictures of my kids, you know, when they're, 2-3 years old holding roosters.
Those are the best pictures.
And
those are the best.
Yeah, but those kids get to know, like, and kind of feel that same thing, that you and I probably felt as kids, is like when I was a 10-year-old kid and walking around with my dad with a BB gun holding that bird. They're experiencing that at home first.
Sure.
And I think that's kind of triggering the excitement. So last year was Jack's first pheasant hunt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we went, and it was actually really powerful. So it was my dad, myself, and Jack.
Nice.
So 3 generations going out to Nebraska and knocking on doors that just of farmers that we've gotten to know over the years,
Sure.
hunting public land. And just, I can remember my dad shot a rooster in a wheat stubble field, walk-in field, and that was Jack's first
experience out in the field.
Yeah. And getting to see the dogs work, and that was powerful. But also equally as powerful was just some of these farmers that we've gotten to know over the years is now, hey, this is my son. And just kind of seeing
that's 3 generations.
3
right there.
generations.
Yeah.
And I think it resonates with them too. The farmer who's like, this is great, you're passing on
it on, absolutely.
this tradition. So in terms of like getting them excited, I think it's just exposure.
Yeah.
It's your hunting dogs, like you doing all your dog training. Your kids are exposed to that, daily.
Yeah.
And then when you come home, I know you're not sheltering these birds, and then you're eating them.
Yeah.
And that's, like my daughter, Reagan, who's 4 now, when she was, 2, 3, I mean, we're eating pheasant, and she's eating pheasant legs. It's just
awesome
stuff like
so
that.
Early exposure, and it's just it's just part of your family now. It's just
Without
part
a doubt.
of, hey guys, Dad went hunting, let's check out what we got.
Exactly,
and then I think that sets him up for success, like you're saying. Like when you take Jack out on his first hunt, like he's
Yeah.
already had like birds that are shot and killed exposure. He's already seen that. He's already like been fascinated by that. Like, I mean, and also too, roosters are beautiful.
Oh,
they're beautiful
Yeah.
birds. And so for a kid to kind of like study their feathers and colors,
it's so powerful. And quail. I mean, we got a couple quail, and like you got a little girl and you give her a little baby quail.
Little tiny quail,
Yeah, she thinks it's a little baby.
Oh, how cute.
I will say, just like some cautions, like, so when I did bring Jack out, like, I like to run and gun, and you're used to doing 10,
You're moving.
15 miles.
You're moving.
You're not going to do that. Yep. And when we were there, we were lucky. We had one, nice day. And then, the next morning it was, we're hunting some prime stuff, but it was cold, and it was frost on all the grass. And so, that was one thing, like, be cautious of.
Sure. Is it just about setting proper expectations for yourself when you bring your kids out?
I think so.
Because you're not gonna put in 15 miles.
No. Yeah.
You might not shoot your.
Yeah.
There's a good chance you're not going to shoot your limit.
Exactly.
It's more about the experience.
I'd say so, and we did luck out. I think that time we were just shy of a limit. We got some quail, but we kind of changed our tactic too. We really worked the corners. Okay. We knew we couldn't be pushing like big CRP fields.
Yeah.
We couldn't be doing like wheat stubble fields. So we focused on these smaller corners, and obviously it's nice having like Grandpa out there. Because I could walk it.
Grandpa's
and
a really good blocker. He's a great
he's
blocker.
A great blocker.
He's a really good blocker. We've touched on it a little bit. Gaining land access. Now, I got to start by saying, you and your dad, you and Carlito do this so well.
Yeah.
And you've touched on developing those relationships. But just talk about that a little bit more, because you and I have talked a bunch. I mean, you encourage me all the time to knock on doors.
That was the goal.
It was the goal. Yeah. I know. I blame it on my back. So it's the back. Sorry.
Right.
Didn't get out as much as I wanted to, but there is something powerful. First off, public land is great. I love public land.
Yeah.
Nebraska has some great access. Kansas has some great access. It's all over.
Yeah.
I love it. But there is something to private land, private access, knocking on someone's door. It opens up other new areas that might not get hit as hard. But I know myself included can be nervous. I'm just going to lay it out there. I know a lot of guys who are just nervous or scared. Like, oh, what if they tell me no?
Yeah.
What if they yell at me? What if they cuss me? Like, who knows what goes through our minds? Kind of just talk about like what's your strategy going into this when you're knocking on someone's door, finding private access land, because you guys do it really well.
Yeah, I think again, reverting back to growing up. I would say growing up, it was probably 90% private ground we hunted.
Wow, that much.
And it wasn't, this is not like we have a lease in place. We're not paying to access the ground. It's simply watching my dad and his buddies knock on the door, spark up some type of rapport, with the landowner, the farmer. And then, let me back up. It is like I was taught, much like you were, is you always knock. That's what I've engraved into Jackson, my son.
Sure.
Is, the ask first to hunt and fish. The old bumper sticker.
Sure.
Is, live by that.
Yeah.
Is, hey, we're hunting. We have to have permission.
Yeah.
And I know there's other guys that, if it's not posted, that means we can hunt it. No.
Sure. You're finding that owner, you're knocking on the door.
You're knocking on the door. So, I think for me, just the success has been comes with just practice. And I'm a salesman by trade too, so
it helps.
Yeah, that helps
a little bit. Okay.
But I think is being respectful to these landowners and approaching them with, hey, I'm gonna come onto your land. It's not me and 10 buddies and 10 dogs. We're coming on. There's a group of 4 of us. We've got 2 dogs. We're looking to. You've got a really nice field located at this county road. Would it be okay if we went in there? But then also just the follow-up is either stopping by that guy's house after you've worked that field.
Oh, wow.
So, hey, thank you so much.
You're doing a, like, hey, thank you. You're not just getting out of Dodge.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. So one of the best relationships I've now created is a guy up in Nebraska, kind of the Panhandle. And it was a spot I used to drive by all the time, actually going to public land. And the public land would get pounded. And I would look at this private spot and be like, I need to knock on that door, but it's got to be leased. There's no way. And inevitably, one day my dad and I were up there, and we pounded the public stuff and didn't get a whole lot of activity. And my dad's like, let's go knock on his door. What's the worst he can say? Like you just referenced,
Sure.
And it's like, he came out the nicest guy and said, absolutely, you can hunt it. Thank you so much for asking.
Wow.
More time than not, I'm chasing guys off it that don't ask.
Oh, wow.
It really hit home with him. Like, thank you for asking.
Yeah, it meant a lot to him.
Yeah. So we went in, and sure enough, I think we pulled 4 birds out of there in an hour. It was a great spot. I had gotten his phone, and I called him up after that and said, hey, we had a great time. Thank you so much for letting my dad and I, come out and hunt. And we kind of just got to talking on the phone, and this landowner says, hey, do you deer hunt? I said, yeah, I deer hunt.
Wow.
He said, well, why don't you come back out next year for opening weekend a rifle, and you can hunt my whole property.
No way.
No cost, just come out.
Wow.
And so, those are the little, maybe that's the 1 in a million type story.
Sure.
That doesn't happen all the time, but
none of that would have happened if you didn't take that chance.
If I didn't take the chance. And like you said, what's the worst that can happen? They can say no.
Sure.
There's been plenty of guys where I've rolled up to with my buddies sitting in the car, and I'll go out and be talking to the farmer in the driveway, and the farmer says no. And just sparking up like a general conversation, developing that rapport.
Yeah.
By the end of the conversation, he says, hey, you can't hunt that field, but guess what? I got another field over here you can hunt.
Yeah.
So I think not being pushy and just being like a genuine.
Yeah, because it's their land. They get to decide.
100%.
Even you being at their door, Exactly. That's kind of
Yeah.
they're probably sitting watching TV,
Oh, yeah.
trying to enjoy their morning or whatever.
Yeah, and on the flip side too, I think a lot of these guys too, being out in a rural area where there's not a lot of socialization, is if you come up and take some interest. Hey, how's farming? How's your crop? How's your moisture? How are prices? How are your cattle doing?
Yeah.
Getting having some vested interest. What are you planting this year?
So it sounds like you're not just taking the approach, knocking on the door. Hey, how you doing? Can I go hunt your land? It sounds like there's a lot more like, hey, like how you doing? I'm so and so.
Yeah.
It's a more casual, non-threatening. Like I want to get to know you a little bit.
Without a doubt. Yeah, I think the guys, and again, just what works for me, is the guys who are going up and saying, kind of like what you just referenced, hey, can I go hunt your land? Yeah. They're not sparking any rapport. I've gone up and knocked on a guy's door or caught him outside. He was skinning a coyote. And we sat there and talked about coyotes for 10 minutes, and what a nice coyote he had. He was getting a nice fur out of it. And just talking. And he was actually a guy, that very thing happened. I say, hey, can I hunt this? No, he's like, we like to keep that for us.
Sure.
And said no, and I sat there and talked to him for another 10 minutes, and not selfishly just trying to get access.
There's a genuine interest.
Interest, yeah.
Hey, just like talking with you, taking a little break in my day, getting to know someone else.
Oh, exactly. And you and I think have talked about it, but just taking an interest in that lifestyle. And by the end of that conversation, he did say, hey, hunt this field over here, and we walked in there with 4 guys and we probably shot 6 roosters.
Yeah.
So
it might not have opened up the door you wanted or went into asking for.
Yeah.
But it opened up something different.
Something else. Yeah.
How are you using Onyx in this? Does that with public land? It's great. I mean, it shows you your public fields. With private, are you using that in any way, or are you just tell us how are you using Onyx?
Yeah, 100%. Onyx has been a game changer. I will say, like pre-Onyx, having a notepad and a pen and paper, and you take down a lot of names, and that's valuable. I actually have a little like Tupperware box full of just notes.
In your gun safe, I'm sure. Right?
In my gun safe, locked up, in my black box. But back then it was you got to know a lot more people because you're knocking on the door to find out who owned that land.
Oh, so you're trying to network a while ago.
Oh yeah, and it was kind of the, hey, I just spoke with your neighbor, Mr. Sanders, and he said you own this. Well, just that connection that you've already spoken with that. So Onyx is awesome though. We used it on our snow goose hunt.
Yeah, we used it a lot.
A lot.
We had like 3 guys at one time.
Nonstop. And exactly, for pheasant hunting, I think it's one of the most important pieces you have. Even if like you're hunting some of these big CRP plots that necessarily don't always have like a barbed wire fence running across the property line. Is knowing where that is.
Just to quickly double check, like, hey, where are we?
Where am I?
Yeah, in this field.
Exactly, yeah. Because I do know a few fields that are that same situation. It's a full section, and maybe a quarter section of it is public walk-in.
Yeah.
So, but having access to the, and knowing how to use it, knowing, hey, this guy owns it. Well, let me look and see where he actually lives. So being able to look at Onyx and kind of look at all the different plots that, like some of the guys we hunted for snow goose, they own 40 pivots.
Yeah.
So being able to use Onyx to look at an image and say, okay, that actually looks like where he lives.
Right.
We're looking at where they're like.
It helps you game plan a lot. It helps you be more efficient, I think, too.
100%.
Because there was a couple other trucks out there on the snow goose hunt.
Exactly.
Chasing down the property.
Yes, exactly.
I think it can help you be a lot more efficient.
Without a doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I've admittedly, I told you this. I think I've only knocked on maybe 1 or 2 doors. No, 1 door for sure. I know.
You told me about it.
I did.
In Holyoke.
In Holyoke, in Holyoke. Knocked on 1 door, and just to share my story, I got up the nerves. I think I was texting you before I went up to the door. I was like, all right, Matt, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And he was outside. He had a couple dogs outside. I was a little leery of. They were barking. I pull up to his driveway, hop out. And super nice guy. I was like, hey, like, and again, what I call the honey hole was right across the street from him. It's this beautiful CRP field. As soon as I got in my truck to hunt that, I mean, there must have been 30, 40 roosters that flew, crossed his house behind another field. So I kind of told him, hey, like, how you doing? My name's Will. You know, hey, I'm hunting out here with my dog and a buddy. Would you mind if I hunt this field behind your house? And he thought about it for a sec. He's like, oh, no, we don't really let anyone hunt that. So no, but check back another time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a no, get off my property. Yeah. It was a hey, like, no, not this year.
Yeah.
So he's definitely on my list if I go back out way to stop back in and kind of see how he's doing. And hey, I talked with you last year. And,
exactly.
Yeah. So
those are the great. I mean,
it was good to get that out of the way. That kind of that first initial one. I was like, okay, I did it.
It's like asking a girl out when you're.
I think it might be more difficult.
Nervous,
it might be more difficult.
No, it's funny. Another funny story. Because I was encouraging you to knock on doors.
Yeah.
Just because I think it opens up so much more opportunity.
Yeah.
Public land is awesome. It's great. It's such a resource. However, like a lot of, public land can get pounded, especially like we saw in COVID.
It can.
And you don't know if a truck just pulled out of there. You typically know on these private, plots, because you're talking to the farmer. He could say, oh, someone's out there right now.
Yeah. Or someone just left.
Someone just left, exactly. But, between you and, like, I'll say a story about Eric, from our snow goose hunt, is I'll always encourage guys, hey, your turn. You go up, you knock on this door.
That's good.
And you can just see the, like, white in their eyes, like, what? I don't want to do this. Well, funny story, we had pulled up into this driveway, and we're pulling up, and I said, Eric, this is your driveway.
You're up, Eric.
This guy owns land, a quarter mile down on this county road. Reference that. Go up. Just do.
Love how you're coaching these guys. You got this, bud. You got this.
Get in. So he's Eric's opening the door. The guy's out on with his kid, kind of in their front yard, and as we're doing that, Eric's closing the door, and I look off to the side, and I see this big sign saying, like, no hunting, right by his house. And Eric closes the door as he's walking up, and I'm kind of like, oh no,
here we go.
This isn't going to be good. But even such, it's, Eric spoke with the guy. The guy obviously said no, but came back and like, yeah, we can't hunt, but he was a nice guy. I was like, hey, look at that sign. And it was maybe a little bit more than like a no hunting, like,
sure.
Trespassers will be prosecuted and whatnot.
Sure.
But it's even those. My dad, and growing up, we would almost see, like, those signs of, like, no hunting without written permission. We're like, awesome, that's like an invitation. Let's go find out.
All we need is written permission.
We need to go find the landowner.
Love that.
It's not like
I love that.
No hunting, period.
Yeah.
It's like
you can hunt.
You can hunt, but you got to talk to me.
It's a good sign.
Perfect.
I like that sign.
So, I think knocking on doors, it's you get to a point like
I said, I really got to see you guys. Well, I got to see it 2 times this year. One on the snow goose hunt. You and your dad would go up, and so it was. For someone who hasn't done it a lot, it was nice to, like, see just even body language, like how you guys carry yourself. Go up, your dad's like fixing his hair, making sure he looks presentable. And then on our pheasant hunt in Nebraska, it was cool to see the relationships you guys had.
Yeah.
So we weren't really knocking on new doors at that point. It was late in the season. But we were going back to relationships you guys have built for years, it sounds like. And so that was really cool to see.
Oh, yeah.
You went up to people's house and be like, hey, good to see you again. And, yeah.
I think that's a very important part, too, to continue the relationship, is finding out, like, interest that these farmers have. And if they're living out in rural, USA, and you're coming from a city, hey, what can I bring you?
I was just going to ask, are you doing any kind of, like, gifts or appreciation?
Pies, hams.
Oh, nice.
A bottle of wine or something like that.
Bringing them elk, maybe from an elky shop.
Exactly. Yeah, I dropped off, some jerky sticks and stuff like that, and I think that goes a long ways. And then I'll say one last thing is just checking in, checking in with these guys when it's not hunting season.
Oh, nice.
So, like, I make it a point to, shoot them a text or a quick call, during, planting, during the summer. Hey, how's your moisture? Hopefully you're not getting any hail. Hope all's well, just checking in.
Nice.
Everyone's knocking and asking these guys,
but not.
For the pheasant
my
opener.
guess is a lot of people aren't maintaining those relationships.
And I think that just gives you the long term. It's becoming a very competitive space, right? Where a lot of leases are snatching up ground, and I can't blame any of these farmers.
Sure.
As their yields are going down, or not yields, but their prices.
Sure. Being affected in some way.
Are being affected. Hey, they've got to supplement in other ways. So I think, I don't fault them, but I think, we've probably seen it more as, hey, this land is leased. Mm-hmm. This land is leased. So kind of just maintaining those relationships with these landowners is crucial.
Absolutely. That's very well said. Okay, let's transition to your dogs for a little bit. I definitely want to spend some time here. A huge smile on my face because I loved hunting behind Maddie and CJ this year. They were amazing. These are some veteran dogs. Just share a little bit about two things. Just give us an overview on your dogs, and also why GSPs? Why'd you go for GSP?
Okay. So I got two dogs. One's 11 and a half, one's 10 and a half. So we'll saw them in their golden year hunts. They're slower. They can't power through like the long 3-day weekend hunts. But I don't know. I posted something on my Instagram, just of random photos and situations. Yeah. They're warriors. They're just warriors. They're just old warriors.
They really are.
So ironically, I was speaking with a breeder yesterday, and we're on the list for a puppy in June. Nice. So, but GSPs, gosh, I don't know why.
And did you grow up with hunting dogs?
No.
So you mentioned hunting with your dad. So did you guys ever have a dog?
We didn't have dogs.
Okay.
So it was totally different. Growing up hunting, my dad taught me how to zigzag walk to cover more
So you
ground.
were a flusher and a retriever.
I was a flusher and a retriever. I was pushing. And we would just get in a big line and push.
Okay. So that's a very different hunting style than what we're doing now.
And I'll say this: we had a Springer Spaniel that was not a hunter.
Okay.
And we tried to bring him, failed miserably. Didn't work. The dog, Spot was his name.
I'm not gonna make any jokes about the Springers. I have some buddies who love the Springers. They're great dogs. They're great dogs.
If you train, this was an untrained, house dog that we threw out thinking, oh, he's got like some,
This is the best dog ever.
Right. So, but then we had a golden, and again, I think it all comes down as you like are great at training. We didn't. These were dogs that were just house dogs.
Sure.
And so like I think with the pointers, it's funny. Here's a funny story. So, one of the companies I worked for was headquartered out in New York. So I had some college buddies in Manhattan. And I remember distinctively one day in Manhattan walking, and someone had a German Shorthair Pointer in Manhattan.
Wow.
Walking this dog. And I remember just being mesmerized. It was just a beautiful, like, liver roan, perfectly ticked. And I just looked at that dog. Of all places, it wasn't in the back of someone's pickup truck. It was in Manhattan. And I looked at that dog, and I was like, this dog is beautiful. Wow. It was just ripped. I mean, just the perfect, silky coat, color. And from there, I really started just researching. And I dove in. We had the golden retriever, and some of my dad's buddies had labs and whatnot. And the more I researched, the more I just became fascinated with the athleticism and the pedigree, the heritage of the German Shorthair Pointer, which led me to get CJ. And I think we probably broke every rule in terms of like when you go to a breeder to get a puppy, like if you see this, walk away. We walked into the breeder, and we'd been corresponding with him about CJ, and walked in, and we had to drive a couple hours to get down there, my wife and I, and sure enough, there's another truck there. And I'm like, hey, what's going on here? Yeah. And the breeder comes out and said, hey, this guy might take both dogs. And I'm kind of sitting here, hey, we've been corresponding.
And you just drove down to pick up
I just drove down to pick up this dog. Yeah. And long story short, the breeder, obviously, like, CJ's turned out to be the best. We all say that about our dogs. Yeah. The dog, I love him. So, he hadn't been outside. They were feeding him just, terrible food and all this stuff. And
kind of a backyard breeder situation.
Yeah, well, it was. I mean, they were full on. Like, I mean, the dogs. I think they did a lot better job at. They were competing with the dogs. So, there were some like hunt trial championships from the parents. But the breeding operation was not. It was almost like out of their basement.
Okay.
And so I remember taking CJ out, and they're like, "Oh, this is the first time he's been outside."
Oh God!
And so my wife and I joke, we're like, "We rescued him."
Yeah, he's a rescue GSP.
He's a rescue GSP, which is funny because that actually leads to Maddie. Maddie is a rescue.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So someone had Maddie was picked up in western Kansas.
No way.
Middle of nowhere, just totally emaciated, skin and bones.
Wow.
We got her. They rescued her, and I think they send a lot of dogs to Denver just with the bigger population. So we had been in touch with this a specific German Shorthair Pointer rescue, and it was a God thing. Honestly, it was that one night we'd been looking month after month, and just hadn't found like the right dog. And I remember laying in bed looking on my phone, and boom, here's a picture of Maddie.
No way.
And it was one of those, I'm like, immediately contacted, hey, I'm interested in this dog. And they say, hey, we just got her, and you're the first email.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm also looking for a hunting dog, and you're taking a big risk with a rescue.
Sure, especially with hunting dogs.
Exactly, they could be gun shy.
I was going to say gun shy. Guys are always worried about that.
Exactly, and it was just a meant to be. Maddie ultimately went from like the intake for the rescue to a foster family, and the foster family were big hunters, and so I obviously was communicating with them a lot, and they said, hey, we're taking her out this weekend to pheasant hunt. And I'm, please God, don't let it be gun shy. And I remember just like waiting for the call, and sure enough, like late Sunday.
So this is before you got her.
Before you
picked her, okay.
So so I had like basically said I want her, and if anyone's ever rescued a dog, it's quite a it's almost like not to the extent of adopting a child, but
sure, but pretty involved.
They come out and they look at your house, they look at you as a person, like, hey, what are you going to be doing with these dogs? And I remember we were actually in the process of moving, and they're like, hey, show me what your fence is going to look like.
No way.
So which rightfully so, they should be making sure these dogs go to the right homes. But I'll never forget that the foster guy, man, she's not gun shy. She's got a great nose. Oh. She's got great instinct. She's already quartering.
Oh my gosh, you must have been stoked.
And I was thrilled. So we got her, and Maddie, fast forward 10 years from when we've gotten her. I wouldn't say she has the athleticism as CJ,
okay,
but I would actually put her nose above CJ's and just her drive.
Okay.
CJ being a male and her being a female, there's always been that, I think you and I have talked about it, like the drive is typically with those males.
Sure.
I think Maddie being a rescue,
you've seen it a little different.
I tell you what, it's almost like she's hunting for food.
No way.
She's always hunting. Where CJ will tire.
It's funny. It's so funny. That? We're sitting at the tailgate. We're BSing after a hunt.
Exactly.
My dogs and CJ are just sitting around us, kind of chilling, water, whatever.
Maddie's hunting.
I'm like, where the hell is Maddie right now? And you're like, oh, she's hunting.
She's hunting, and that's what she does. Is she never stops.
Yeah. I have not seen that in a dog before. Like they're continuing to go.
And when I let her out, like in the open space here, she's hunting. it's funny because my neighbor, we got the prairie dogs up there, and she'll point, and my neighbors right here have seen her up there, and they're like, they'll stare
okay?
like, what is that? Or if someone's riding their mountain bike, and Maddie will be at full point at a prairie dog and just standing there.
Yeah.
I mean,
you told me she's been standing there for 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, she's been out there for an hour before, just pointing at this prairie dog that's chirping at her.
Yeah.
So yeah, going back to pointers, I love pointers.
Yeah.
I love hunting dogs.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I love.
I think we
dogs.
all have our favorites. Like, and it's okay to have like you love GSPs.
Yes.
I love Brittany's.
Exactly.
The next guy loves setters.
Yes.
And I tell this to people all the time. There is no wrong dog for hunting. It is what you enjoy. What you enjoy hunting behind, that's great. If you enjoy hunting behind a golden, a lab, a springer, whatever it is, like if it gets you out there upland hunting, chasing birds, like
it's so powerful.
It's great. It does not matter what dog you have.
Yeah. And it's funny. So you and I, with our network of friends, I'll say this, like, if we're kind of like addressing people getting into hunting and looking at potential dog breeds or maybe not even at that point yet, but just showing a huge interest in hunting, I always kind of get a good laugh when, like within our circle of friends, you get a couple guys who are very geeked out on hunting, right? I love pheasant hunting. I want to do it every weekend. And then the conversation comes up, hey, we're getting a dog. Oh, what are you getting? Oh, we're getting a golden doodle. We're getting a labradoodle. We're getting a non-hunting dog. And I kind of call them out on that. I say, hey, I thought you were really interested in hunting.
If you really want to hunt,
this is a great opportunity.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, like, for people to know and educate everyone in their family. Hey, this isn't a hunting dog that you may have seen 20 years ago that's living in a box in your yard.
Yeah.
This is a family dog.
Yeah. Because like you said, these dogs are spending, again, I try to hunt as much as I can, but let's be honest, these dogs are in our house, say 90% of the time. When it relates to like the time hunting and the time as a family pet, like it's a huge difference.
Oh, it's a huge difference. And the hunting dogs are just, I mean, you're Brittany's with your 5 kids.
Yeah.
These are a part of your family. My dogs, it's, everyone's always kind of has this stereotype of a hunting dog being like an aggressive, non-family dog. It's, you and I have had both of our kids grow up pulling on these dogs' ears,
the tails,
riding them, and no incident. Yeah. So, I just like, as people are getting into pheasant hunting and exploring dogs, explore hunting dogs. Don't.
And I'll say genetics are huge, especially talking about like genetics and bloodlines for hunting. Again, you can try hunting with a labradoodle. It's maybe going to be an amazing family dog. Yes, but set your expectations right that it's going to be way different than a well-bred GSP or a setter or something, Yeah. And so pay attention to genetics, bloodlines, on the hunting side, because it's going to make your training easier. It's going to make the getting that dog into birds and hunting style. It's going to make it just so much easier for you. For the average guy like me who's doing this for fun and I'm not a pro kennel or anything.
Right. Yeah.
It helps speed up that process a lot.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think the guys who are going out and getting, hey, I want to get the micro version of the labradoodle, whatever type doodle, and the hunting has been bred out, because poodles are actually great hunting dogs.
They were duck dogs.
Great water dog. And so, and obviously like a lab or a retriever, a golden retriever, great hunting dogs, but as they're bred so much to be more of a family pet dog,
that instinct, that hunting line,
it's almost driven out.
It is.
So just be like you're saying, I'd be super cautious of getting this dog because maybe your wife wanted more of a family dog.
Sure.
And your expectation is, hey, I'm going to turn it into a hunting dog.
I think that's harder.
That might be harder.
I think that's harder to do. When I'm picking dogs out, they are family dogs, they're my pets, but also I want a badass hunting dog.
Oh, without a doubt.
So I'm leaning more like, hey, show me what was this dog's parents like?
Yeah.
What were the grandparents like?
Yeah.
And go back and back and back. Because I want that, and I'll adapt the dog to my family style. Like,
and I think the dog adapts, right? I mean,
100%.
They're going to become a part of that family.
If you get them around, part of like having a new puppy, which we'll talk about a year pup coming up here in a little bit. A big part is like, don't just keep them in the kennel when they're. Get them around your kids. Get them around the loud noises and kids screaming and running around. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
We had to do that with our dogs because we have 5 kids. It's constantly loud in our house. Sure, that's why we're recording this at your house. Right. So the dog had to adapt to, and it did adapt to us. Yeah. Kids are crying and screaming, and it's the dog adapted because it was around that environment.
Without a doubt, and I think it's good for the dog too. Like, if they're not. This is a pack animal, right? So you become the pack. So if you're excluding them from the pack, I think that's when you see like a lot of separation anxiety and like just socialization. When you take these dogs to the dog park or whatever, and they're getting into tiffs and whatnot. I can remember with our dogs, probably too young. We were taking them to the dog park and exposing them.
Sure.
And, like I used to actually tell some of my buddies who were getting dogs is, the best thing that ever happened to like my dog was he got beat up one day at the dog park. And he learned kind of the hierarchy of how to approach other dogs and whatnot.
Really
because
good.
That also translates into getting together at a field with your buddies. Next thing you know, you got 5 dogs who've never met. And kind of like these dogs learn quickly, hey, this is how we greet each other, but this is how we hunt together too. Is we're gonna equally hunt this ground. And like when we did it, it's so awesome when you have 3-4 dogs out there.
Oh yeah, it was a blast.
And Gunner learning. Yeah. It's just that's such a cool. Time.
100%. Yeah. Gage kept chasing CJ around that day. I don't know what was up with him.
Well, and
that was so funny.
It's funny, and I think that's CJ just being old too. Sure. I think I told you, I was like, oh, he'll nip at him, and it'll be over.
Yeah.
And I think Gage, 2 years ago, maybe CJ would have nipped, but it just didn't.
No, that never happened. Never happened. All right, let's talk about this new pup. What was kind of the sign for you? Now, I know you said your dogs are 10 and 11, so was it just age where you're like, hey, it's time to pull the trigger on a puppy?
Yeah, I mean, it's, these dogs, and it's, when you look at, so I'm reminded, like, when we hunted this year, when I'm looking at Gage and just covering ground, just quartering, just, jumping, through, like, CRP. Yeah. And that was, for me, that was 7-8 years ago.
Sure.
So that's a long time, but, looking at your dogs from, this progression of their hunting up here, and then each year they're progressively slowing down, can't hunt as hard, can't hunt as long.
Sure.
And then, I think this past season, I really focused a lot on pheasant, knowing that potentially it could be, one of their last seasons. And we didn't do a waterfowl lease this year.
Sure.
And I part of that was situational, but even if there was an opportunity, I kind of told myself, hey, I'm going to pheasant hunt even more this year.
Yeah.
And that just to get them out. I don't know. Seeing them this year was kind of okay.
Kind of it hit you a little harder.
Hit me hard. And it was one of those too. I want to introduce a pup to actually learn from. Get
all 3 of them out there, hopefully.
Get them all together, yeah. Because in all honesty, that's how we trained Maddie.
Yeah.
Was CJ. We didn't send him anywhere, but my wife and I every weekend were, out at Valhalla, working that dog. And I spent a ton of time just on my own, much like you do, and a lot of these guys do. Yeah. And when we got Maddie, she really just,
she was kind of already
following what CJ was doing. And I think that really helped, just with honoring points. And I will, the challenge thing, I never got into force fetching with him.
Sure.
And actually, when I just had CJ, he was actually doing a lot better job at like retrieving. And as soon as I got, Maddie, it became more of a competition to see who's going to get that bird. And they forgot about returning it. And I was kind of in a mindset of, well, I want you to point it.
Yeah.
I want you to find it, and I'll run up and grab it.
Yeah.
So I was like, that was kind of like my sacrifice point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really hoping that, in June, we're supposed to, I actually spoke with the breeder
Nice.
Earlier this week. And, they've got, a dog that, ironically, he, I was talking about this dog that he had 10 years ago. I think the dog's name is Max. It was just a beautiful dog. I remember training CJ, and we were in it was a hot day, and we were having a hard time getting birds up, and he came out and brought Max. I was like, hey, we put 5 birds out here, and we got 3. There's 2 other, and boom, Max came out, boom, and just locked up.
Wow.
And so I referenced that in my conversation with him earlier this week. He's like, ironically, Max is one of the grandparents of this litter.
Oh, no way.
So it was really kind of like a cool connection to be able to.
So will this pup be out of?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have
nice.
some lineage to Max, but
that's great. How I was going to ask you this: how are you going to know? Because that's going to be a tough call. So you're older dogs right now. How are you going to know when it's time to kind of retire them from the field? I know that's a loaded
tough.
one.
Yeah.
I know.
So I think it'll be. I think it'll just be a known thing.
Okay.
And it could be this year. Okay. I think Maddie probably has another year.
Okay. Is Maddie the younger?
The younger one, yeah. And I think CJ, just noticed actually right now when he was down here, going back up the steps, I can kind of tell his hips. And he just doesn't, when we go out in front of the house, he used to go run and chase prairie dogs or rabbits or whatever.
Just slowing down a little bit.
And now he just kind of chills and hangs out by me. So I think...
he's using his energy wisely.
But as you've seen, these dogs you can run them down and then wake up that next morning and thinking hey, I'm going to rest him. And that dog is like, no way am I resting.
You better not leave me in the car.
You better not leave me in the car. I'm coming out.
Yeah.
And as soon as they hear a gunshot or smell a bird, it's game on.
It's game on.
It's that's their Red Bull.
Yeah. That's going to be a tough one, man, for sure. Just to know. Again, you'll know when you know, but they'll be
it's actually cool this year. I bumped into a guy in this. There's huge CRP field. Just a huge field with a bunch of cedars in it. And, I got out and was walking, and sure enough, there was another guy that was parked on another road, and we met, and he had a young pup, but he also had his old dog. And his old dog was right by him, wasn't hunting, was walking with him.
Okay.
And we got to talking. He's like, oh, yeah, he's 11, and he's kind of retired. He just comes out, and he's like, oh, yeah, he loves to, once we get a bird, smell it. And, so I think I'm optimistic that's
maybe could do something
with CJ.
That would be super cool.
Yeah.
So just a couple more questions on while we're on the dog topic. So with this new pup, is there, because you've gotten to see your veteran dogs hunt for 10, 11 years. In picking a new pup, are there certain qualities, certain attributes about this next dog that you want? And so talking with the breeder, are there some things you want, some that you've learned really along the way?
Yeah, good question. So I'm probably not as educated as you are in terms of pedigree, and I haven't placed a super high priority on obviously I want them coming out of hunting pedigrees, but I wouldn't not get a dog because the parents weren't field trial champions or something like that. Awesome. For me, again, we did everything wrong when we got CJ.
And you have 2 badass bird dogs.
and they turned out great. So I think it's, I think as long as the dog is coming from some hunting pedigree, that the work you put in, obviously you've seen the fruits of your labor on the training side, is early. Doing the training early is we did the puppy bird dog classes. Shooting pigeons, just getting them used to gunshot and getting him used to
getting those basics
wings and stuff like that in the mouth. So in terms of what I look for, I've seen, I've gotten friends, and I can't say I've personally done bringing out a wing or something, and
Sure.
you got all the puppies together and you throw a wing out, and whatever dog goes and grabs it and brings it back, that's the one you get.
Sure.
I think all those little
a lot of it is training based too.
Training based,
and that's a great point, Matt, because I do want people to realize, again, whether someone's just getting into hunting, they're looking to get their first bird dog, it does not have to be this field trial champion $2,000 dog.
Yeah.
I know guys who pay $100 for a pup. Sure. Run to the litter even, and this dog has turned out to be great.
Dog.
So
exactly.
It is. Don't let pedigree and that deter anyone.
Sure.
From getting a bird dog.
Get a bird dog.
Case in point. I mean, Maddie, she was a rescue, and she's turned out to be a great.
She's been and I would even say that too is don't be afraid to rescue a dog. Now you might run into more challenges. But I think, it's just going to come down to the work. It's no different than what you and I were talking about earlier between waterfowl hunting and upland bird hunting.
Sure.
It's the work put in. Yeah. And I'm not saying you don't put in a ton of work in waterfowl hunting, because you do, but walking that extra mile at, 5 o'clock to get that last bird is putting in that extra amount of training into a pup or into a rescue. These dogs, again, if it's a Brittany, if it's a pointer, it's a lab, whatever, if it's a rescue and has some hunting heritage, whether you know about that or not, you just know the breed, is you put that time and energy into training that dog and you create that bond. It's, rescue or not, it just comes down to that bond you create with your dog, training, working, and that dog is they're pack animals. They're gonna form that bond with their pack leader, and they want to make you happy. And it's
absolutely
get a bird dog.
Absolutely, get a bird dog. Just everyone get a bird dog. It's the best decision ever.
Yeah.
All right, let's transition into a little bit of Paxton Gear Company.
Sure.
This is super exciting. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Paxton Gear? A little bit, why Paxton Gear?
So, I guess the idea, so the name, Paxton, Will had the pleasure of going to Paxton for the snow goose hunt.
Yeah.
We were hunting around there. Is
that where you did most of your hunting growing up? Is it just a fun place for you?
No, okay. We did a little bit further south because you were around. Was it Enders?
Enders, yeah.
And then east of there,
Grant?
McCook,
and,
yeah. So a little bit further south
okay.
of where actually we did a lot of hunting growing up. But I guess over the past 10 years, Paxton has become just a place that we've gone to pheasant hunt, to snow goose hunt, to duck hunt, to do a bunch of fun stuff. And, just the memories from that place. So, the whole idea with Paxton was I'm a big elk hunter too. So I love elk hunting and I love gear. I'm like you, a gear
yes.
nut. So
we could start a whole nother podcast on gear.
So, there was, a couple days that I've been in the field in my pheasant hunting stuff, and it's been soaking wet, it's been heavy, it's been hot, and I kind of looked at those days in the field and compared them to elk hunting. So I do a lot of primarily now more like archery, elk, but a lot of the cool companies, the Sitkas, the Kuyus, the First Light,
sure.
They're using these awesome fabrics, right? That breathe, that stretch, that have water repellency. So I was looking at those. So here in September, I'm wearing all this cool functional gear, right? And it's breathing, it's performing, it's keeping me warm, it's shedding water. And then I transition into pheasant hunting in November, and I'm putting on more of this like waxed cotton, canvas, heavier product.
Heavy, itchy,
doesn't breathe. And I'm sitting here like, why is this? Why isn't there, an Upland, product, pant, vest, jacket, whatever it might be, that has these cool, innovative fabrics? So, I'd thought about this for, I'd say, the past 5 years. It's kind of like, my dream would be to have my own, Upland kind of company, focusing on something that I'm passionate about and love to do. And sure enough, like, probably a lot of companies were started in March of 2020 when like COVID was hit hard, and everyone's kind of on lockdown at home. And I remember just sitting there one day, and I was like, I'd actually had COVID.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice.
was recovering, and I was like laid out for. I was ultimately laid out for like 3 weeks, and it was at the end of that, and I was like, man, I feel like a waste of space. I've done nothing, and I was like, I need to like light a fire,
do something
under my butt, and get going. And sure enough, like I registered like the Paxton gear with the state that day, and just started like rolling with it. So we're just definitely still in like its infancy stage.
Sure.
Finding out all the like intricacies, much like you're finding out with Upland Brits, like website design, logo design,
a lot of elements,
a lot of
elements to it.
But we've got I've got some like blueprint sketches, and we're working with it's an obstacle around every corner.
Sure, I can only imagine.
Manufacturing.
I can only imagine. I'm kind of like watching through the window, like, how's this gonna unfold? I'm so excited.
Oh yeah.
So what can you share? What can people expect in the next year or two from Paxton Gear? Sure. Just what you can share or want to share.
Oh, of course, yeah. In all honesty, I'm not really looking to keep it super quiet. Input is ultimately what is going to drive like creation. As I was building and designing some of the pants, you were part of my field survey, like expert, is like, hey Will, what do you think of this? Like, what is something super important for you when it comes to a vest?
Sure.
And like I remember distinctly, you had like, hey, I got a big hand, and if I'm wearing a glove, I need to be able to reach into my pocket and grab shells. And I remember asking, well, do you use the little elastic,
the shell loops?
The shell loops. And you said no.
They look cool.
But I don't. I just dump them in. I was like, well, that's what I do too. I was like, every one of my bird vests has that.
Because by the time let's just talk about shell loops, okay? Going the first field, okay, sure, you're gonna load them up the night before. You're gonna put those little shells in there. It looks awesome. By the time you start reloading and missing birds, there is no chance on a weekend hunt that I am reloading those shell loops.
No way.
Just being honest.
Ain't gonna happen.
No, not gonna happen.
But an important part, because there's been having athletic dogs. You and I, and everyone else who does or hunts behind some type of bird dog, is that dog goes on point on a wild rooster. And that dog's on point, 50 yards in front, you are running up there. Yeah. Right? So
it's not a leisurely, like, hey, we'll get up there eventually.
Exactly.
No, you're running.
You're running up there, and like the last thing you want to do is lose $25 worth of shotgun shells because they've popped out.
Especially these days.
Yeah, exactly. You can't get them. Yeah. So I think it's all the little points of focusing on, my, 30 plus years of hunting, and then talking with like a network of people who've grown up hunting, who are gear nuts like yourself, and just practicality of, hey, how does this work? What do you like about this design? What don't you? What I was asking you, hey, what's your favorite jacket? Why? Oh, it's this because of this material, and it's the best jacket I've ever owned.
And large, tall.
Right.
Tall sizes, Matt. Tall sizes.
So I think the goal, in terms of like the next year or two, again, this is my first time ever doing it. So our goal is to come out with, the company, I had the idea and I based it off of pants. There's been so many different times in the field where I've gotten frustrated with either my pants being, just too heavy, being being wet.
Yeah, getting a burr or something poking through and poking in the leg.
Just like there's so many things, or just not lasting.
Yeah. Well, you're buying a pair every year or every other year.
Yeah. And so like my whole like idea was really, focused around pants. But then as I'm like sketching out the pants and working with like companies on like, hey, what type of fabrics can I use here? Is you start thinking, I say, well, what am I wearing for like a jacket? Because you and I know you're going from, you can have that 70-degree day. Sure. In November.
Yeah.
And then the next day it can be
you're in a blizzard,
snowing and 10 degrees. So having something that has those same
the versatility aspect is huge because guys,
breathable.
I think guys are willing to pay good money for some of these items that last.
That's last and perform. Exactly.
If you're going to spend whatever on a jacket or pants, I'm okay doing that because I know it's going to last a long time and be versatile.
Without a doubt, it's like I'm in the market right now for a new pair of like hunting boots, like elk hunting boots, and I'm looking and I'm talking to Lindsay about it, and the price range is $400+ for a good pair of boots. Yeah. And she's like, oh my God, that's incredible. And I'm like, well, not really. My last pair I've worn for 10 years. I've almost put like 1,000 miles on them.
Yeah, are those the Kendricks you have right now? Or?
No, I got it was actually the Mindel Denali.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Cabela's used to carry Mindel. Then when Bass Pro bought them, they got rid of it.
Gotcha. And you wear those pheasant hunting too, don't you?
I wear them pheasant hunting too.
Yeah, so I wear my crispy Nevadas uninsulated.
Okay. Yeah, well, we're gonna have to talk more because that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, they're nice. 0 break-in period, no blisters.
Yeah. Beautiful.
They're expensive, but I'm using them for elk last year.
Pheasant,
I use them for hiking. Like if I go on a hike with the family, I'm putting them on, and then pheasant hunting as well.
Well, and when you break that out, if I just had these, and those boots were $400, we're talking $40 a year for a pretty integral part of.
That's a huge part.
That's a huge part.
Talk about pheasant hunting, chucker hunting, whatever bird hunting you guys are doing. We talked about, you're walking 10+ miles a day.
Yes.
Take that into a weekend hunt or a week-long trip.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if my feet are hurting or I got blisters within day 1 or 2, I'm like, the dog's ready to go, but I'm like,
you're hurting.
Crap. Yeah.
Which is a great point, and I'm glad you said that because, being an elk hunter, much like yourself, is, don't get me wrong, elk hunting is hard. You are dealing with, very rugged terrain, hiking, through the backcountry, elevation, drop, gain, etc. But, let's not pheasant hunting is a lot of work too.
Definitely.
You're working where you may not be dealing with the elevation changes, but walking through a mile section of thick CRP is not like a walk in the park, right?
No, and the CRP grass that's grabbing your feet, and you can't you're trying to high step through this thick stuff.
It's a workout.
It is. Your legs are feeling it.
Yeah. So like you and I are big Garmin guys. I always look back and see like, well, hey, how many steps did I take today? Yeah. And those pheasant days are right up there with my elk days.
Definitely. Again, you're not dealing with the elevation,
but
you're dealing with the mileage,
altitude. Yeah, but it's a lot of miles, and so having, whether that's boots or gear, pants, etc., jackets, dealing with wind and rain and snow and heat, you name it. You just need like a product, boots, pants, jackets, etc., that's going to perform in a varying climate.
Speaking of gear real quick, you were looking at a new dog collar? Are you still deciding on what you're doing?
I will, yeah. Okay. Again, I'm using that Dogtra system, which has been great. I've had it for 10 years.
So how your dogs are. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
But I think I was telling you when we were out pheasant hunting is the range. And you probably see that.
Yeah, it was giving you a little trouble.
Which becomes frustrating when you shame on me. I should probably, have my dogs a little bit better trained, but you get that wild rooster.
I mean, their hearing doesn't get as good when they get older. So,
and then when they're, get on a bird and that rooster is running, and your dog doesn't want to get off it.
They can get out there. Yeah.
And I can't control it.
Have you ever ran a GPS collar on your dogs? Or no?
I haven't. No. Okay. No, but I'm really curious about your Garmin system.
It is sweet.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, it's a peace of mind thing.
Sure.
The second layer is it's cool to see like how they work and
Yeah.
how many miles they do.
They're doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the fun factor is on secondary for me. For me, it's a peace of mind. I've had some buddies' dogs run off and that thing. So, and Gunner, I just got him. So the Garmin, they have two different size collars. They have it's the TT15 standard size. It's a longer battery. I run that one on gauge. It's a 1-inch collar strap. And in Gunner, they make a TT15 mini.
Oh, nice.
So it's a little smaller because he's
pup.
Well, pup or smaller breed
Smaller
too.
breed. Okay.
So I have that for him. Fits him great.
Oh, nice.
But it just gives me.
I remember
peace of
you
mind.
telling me your buddy losing the dog, and it's almost like an insurance policy having the GPS to say, "Hey, I've invested X amount to buy the dog, X amount to feed the dog.
I want to
X
bring this
amount
dog
to
home.
train him." Yeah,
exactly.
Because I think I referenced to you, we were out hunting once, and we got back, and CJ went on point at the truck, and was pointing at the truck, and me and all my buddies, what is going on? And sure enough, there was a Vizsla. There was
you told me this.
A year-old Vizsla that a guy hunting a mile away.
Wow.
They shot, and the dog took off. And he was so scared, he was underneath my truck.
Oh, wow.
And so we obviously picked up the dog and started driving around and found this guy.
Wow.
And he was like, "Oh, thank you so much."
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine if I would have lost this dog.
Guys are not always that lucky, I'll say.
I'll say 100%.
Not always that lucky.
So, that's
cool.
a nice insurance policy.
Absolutely. We can talk about that we can talk about that a lot longer. Trust me. No, it's a great system.
Heck yeah.
All right, brother. We'll wrap up here with a couple rapid fire questions.
Oh boy.
So these are just some fun, off the cuff. Couple of them I'm going to ask you why behind your statements.
Sure.
But we're just going to kind of blaze through a couple. And at the end, I do want to answer a listener question. Someone wrote in. I thought it'd be good for you to answer. But all right, upland hunting, waterfowl hunting, or elk hunting, and why? If you had to pick one.
Oh gosh.
I know.
So I'm gonna say.
Hey, do we need to set ground rules here?
I'm gonna say pheasant and elk, but I'm gonna rule out elk because of dogs. Watching dogs be a part of the equation, for me, like we were talking probably off air before we started this, about like pointing a hen at the end of the day and how it's worth it, is just watching dogs work. I'm totally satisfied if I don't pull the trigger, but the dog points 20 hens that day.
Sure.
And you're not shooting, but just watching the dog quartering, pointing. If you got two, honored point. That
makes it worth it.
If dogs weren't part of the equation, I'd probably lean more towards elk. And you're catching me right now is in the midst of like elk tags coming out in the middle of the draw, and so I've kind of transitioned to like elk mode. But
that's fair.
You add that dog component, and I'll also say this with pheasant hunting for guys getting into it, the camaraderie on a pheasant hunt, where you're not worried about wind, scent. Kind of being off by yourself, which we traditionally elk hunt that way. You're in a truck together. You're laughing because your buddy missed a layup hunt. You're staying in that dive hotel, going out and getting a steak dinner or something with your buddies and having a couple beers. Like that whole component of pheasant hunting really makes it hard to top.
I totally agree. And
I love waterfowl hunting. As I know.
We do. We've probably done more waterfowl hunting.
Totally.
Than upland hunting. I would say. And those have been blasts sitting in pits and blinds.
But you go pheasant hunting, you don't have to wake up at 3 and set out.
Exactly. That is a bunch of decoys. That is a very nice part about that.
Sorry, that wasn't the most rapid answer.
We didn't even talk about your decoy trailer. Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, that's
unreal. Okay, solo hunt with just you and your dogs, or a group hunt with a couple close friends?
Man, after I just said
the camaraderie, I kind of think I know your answer, but
so while that camaraderie component is like awesome, right? To have your buddies, the drive out, the excitement for the planning component. Honestly, I'm so fortunate that part of my sales territory included Nebraska, And so I've been so blessed to be able to do so many solo hunts, as I know you have as well.
Sure.
Is getting into a field with just you and your dog is like peace on earth.
Yeah.
And
to be able to truly follow the dog and not worry about the line, you kind of have to stay in.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think, the dogs know it too.
They totally do.
Ask the dog.
They totally
They're
do.
like, I want to hunt with you. These guys get ahead, behind, this.
I'm not getting nicked on the collar as much.
It's just like, I don't know. Some of my absolute best hunts have been me and my dogs.
That's great.
That's
awesome. Okay, if not a GSP, what's your second favorite bird dog?
Wow. You want me to say a Brittany?
No. There is no.
No.
There is.
So it's funny. My dad's buddy Gary. Have you met Gary? I can't remember. Anyhow,
I can't remember.
He's got a Brittany. Great dog, much like yours. And this year hunting with you, I love, watching Gage work.
Sure.
Was just awesome. I mean, that really got me like moving. I think I was looking back at my first contact with this breeder was in November.
Okay.
It coincided like right after we hunted because I was like, okay, seeing this young dog work. Yeah. I'm trying to think. At one point we were looking at Vizslas.
Okay.
Just because they're beautiful.
They are beautiful dogs.
They're just a beautiful dog, and I guess I've always kind of gravitated, since having pointers, to the short hair breeds.
Okay.
And I'll say this only because we took that golden retriever I said we had.
Oh yeah.
We took him out and got into like a briar patch. And literally, it was like it was an hour where we were just cutting him out. It's a nightmare. It was so tough.
It can be, yes.
Of course, since then, I was like, I probably have never seen a briar patch since then. But the beauty of like the short-haired dog, but obviously the downfalls too. If you are like working that dog into like a waterfowl system, where you're hunting ducks and geese,
you got to know kind of what your goals are for hunting,
totally,
and then what dog can do
everything. Yeah. So I know like there's like these a lot of guys are moving towards like these pointing labs.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. To be able to have like a lab who you can do these late season waterfowl hunts, water retrieves,
very
also
versatile.
Pointing and retrieving. Like that's a great combo.
All right, so you're not giving me an answer here.
Oh, I know.
You're not giving me an answer.
Gosh.
I'm gonna pin you down here. Come on.
I think of Vizsla. I think
that surprised me.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay.
I think of I've actually told a couple buddies who have said, hey, I don't want a pointer, they're too big, or whatever. My wife wants something like this, and I'm like, hey, take a look at this dog.
Take a look at Vizsla, because they're good size too.
They're not, a little smaller.
They're like probably more like a Brittany size.
I would say they're more like Gage size. Yeah, and they just have that same athletic, big chested.
Yep.
Your athletic stance, and
that's awesome.
I don't know. That's a hard one because it's funny. Lindsay and my wife were saying like, hey, I don't see us ever owning anything but a GSP. And you probably, you can say the same exact thing.
I love bird. It's hard. It's like I can say like, no, I'd only own Brittany's, but there's dogs like an English pointer. I'm very attracted to. Setters, I'm attracted to. Like, there's so many.
I know.
So many freaking options.
I know. I think that's a question that I think
it's
I'll
a hard one.
Always be a pointer guy though, and it'd be funny to like see how your kids what they kind of ultimately
what they
into,
gravitate.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jack when he was
he's like, Dad, I want an English cocker.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? You're a pointer guy.
Buddy, let's have a talk.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, just a couple more. What gun are you carrying out into the uplands?
Yeah, so a Browning Satori over under, a special gun. It was my dad's gun.
Okay.
He handed it down to me, and it's one of those like I used to go back and forth between if I was shooting like my waterfowl gun, my Benelli, really great at ducks and geese and stuff. I getting in the upland field, I'd be like, oh, this is nice to have that extra third shot.
Sure.
and you're just swinging it well. Over the past 2 or 3 years, I've almost exclusively shot that Benelli the Browning.
The Brown, okay.
Just because I don't know, something about, the traditional over-under kind of upland feel of the 2 shots, and hey, if I miss, which I miss, that you won that one, Rooster.
Yeah.
And because I don't think you need a plug in Nebraska for upland, because I know certain guys I've hunted with, they'll load in a bunch of shells, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. I don't need.
Is there something like you feel okay with just having 2 attempts?
2 attempts. If you beat me on that, fair enough.
Yep, we're gonna keep chasing.
We're gonna keep chasing. We're gonna go get more. Yeah. So that's I like that.
That's a cool outlook. I like that. I think that can get overlooked sometimes. I think. Even when I started out, I think I was so in the mindset of limit.
Yes.
That's all I focused on. And since getting the dogs now and getting more into it and learning more about upland hunting, it's about the chase. It's about the experience with the dogs, your buddies, more than the limit. If I get one bird, awesome. Got one bird.
Yeah.
It's an accomplishment.
Oh, sure. Yeah, the actual shooting the bird is such a small percentage of the total experience that, if you focus solely on chalking up that hunt as a win or not based off limits, you'd be disappointed so many times.
Sure.
It's, hey, the dog worked great. If you didn't shoot the gun at all.
Yep. Got a good
but
point.
The dog pointed, a couple hens or whatever.
Yeah, dog worked really well today. He was ranging good. He was listening. Those are the things that make it.
Yeah, for sure.
Favorite bird species to hunt?
Pheasant.
Okay.
I'll say a close second, though, has got to be quail. We got into those quail this year.
Yeah, we did.
And having a pointing dog and a covey of quail, there's nothing like it. Yeah. Where that, as we know, these wily roosters tend to start running, and those quail just bunker down, and it's just so fun.
They hold tight.
They
hold tight.
I think it was with you, or maybe the weekend before. We were in that same corner. I think you shot a quail, and I couldn't see CJ because that was really thick cover over there, and he was in front of my dad, and I couldn't see him, and I was beeping him, and I was CJ. I thought he was pushing through and everything was gonna flush out, and I'm hitting him, and then I started buzzing him, and then I hear some shots, boom, 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 and my dad's he was on point. He's I shot a quail. He's on a covey, and I was oh my God. Yeah. He was holding that point the whole time, and I'm sitting there buzzing him. And, I was oh my, I feel terrible.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's on, I think another podcast I was recording a couple of days ago. This past year with you was my first wild quail.
Oh, sure.
I've seen, experienced, it was amazing. And the first flush of the day was that first field we hit. It was kind of that real dense tree row.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And you yelled quail. I heard shots. Your dad shot. I feel I just was getting my gun up.
Yeah.
And I see these little rockets.
Exactly.
Flying across the field.
They are so fun. As a kid, I can remember distinctively the first time I was carrying a gun in walking through this field, and it was kind of a draw, and there was this hole, where the water had come through and just kind of eroded a bunch of stuff out, and there's a bunch of weeds and stuff. And I'm looking at this hole, and just standing there as a kid, the 13 years old or something, and looking, and I was okay, I'm going to step over this hole. And stepping over it, and there was a covey of maybe 15 quail in that hole. And as I was halfway over, they literally exploded out from underneath me.
Wow.
And it was just one of those from any time since then, a new appreciation for how tight those quail hold. It's just so cool.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so fun. No, quail. I got very excited with the quail.
Oh yeah,
the little quail.
There was a lot of quail.
The quaaludes.
Quaaludes. There was a lot of them.
They
this
were
year
awesome.
Too. I've spoken with multiple people.
Okay, this is perfect because this actually we have a listener question. Joseph Matthew Waglin, maybe Joseph. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that very wrong. But Joseph asked, "Where the hell are all the quail birds?" This past season for you, maybe specifically, or even maybe years past. It sounds like you're hunting Nebraska a lot.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in terms of quail numbers?
I would say if I had to look at the past 10 years, quail in western Nebraska, and I'm not saying like Panhandle, I'm saying, basically Colorado border east to about McCook is just, kind of in up to I-80 is kind of the area that we hunt. That the numbers have increased. I don't have a percentage or anything like that, but 10 years ago I felt we wouldn't see a ton of quail, and I know quail are a lot more susceptible to pesticides, fertilizers that farmers are putting out.
Sure.
They're not as hardy as like a rooster, and so I think they're like their hatches, eggs. Hail gets them big time too. So, but I just seen like a big increase in the number. I'd say really over the past, 2-3 years maybe. Yeah. With this last year being even better.
Really? So you think they're making that?
I hope
a good steady.
Yeah, it's ironically, someone told me that the Nebraska like Fish and Game is working on quail habitat and like introduction as well. So
nice. Just managing that land well and trying to help them.
Yeah, but like I don't know if he's asking about like where are they like in terms of cover and whatnot.
Yeah, kind of a broad question, but it's either location or I took it more as like number wise.
Sure. Yeah, I think they're increasing, and we don't have quail fields. We have there's birds in this field, whether that's a pheasant, a rooster.
Are you finding pheasant and quail somewhat together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those fields. I think that this was actually a rougher year for pheasant.
I've heard that from a couple people.
Just the numbers, weren't they? Those same corners that we hunted this year. We've had 40 birds pour out of those.
Wow.
Roosters.
Yeah.
We
just didn't see that.
We just didn't see that this year. And that was across multiple trips and stuff. I just felt like the numbers weren't there. But yeah, I think you historically kind of there's a covey of quail that has traditionally lived here, and you can go back to that. I think I don't feel like a quail is as nomadic.
Sure,
whatever, an elk or something. But like, I think that same corner where you were talking about the quail, we've gotten quail up there every year.
Sure.
So
okay,
we're always hunting, cover. And whether a rooster or a quail pops out.
Whatever pops up, you'll be surprised. Just
totally.
Make sure the gun's loaded.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's loaded. Awesome, Matt. All right, last closing comments here. For anyone out there listening who's maybe new to upland hunting, maybe they just started it this past season, maybe they are looking forward to their first season here coming up. What's one piece of advice or just a general piece of advice that you would give them who's just getting started into upland hunting? Whether it be maybe they're just focusing on pheasants, maybe they're getting into chucker, whatever it is.
Sure, yeah. I would kind of maybe hit on, kind of things that we've talked about through this podcast of don't focus on the limit or shooting the bird. Like putting these goals, you might be rolling out there. Most likely if you're getting started, one, you're probably not hunting like choice property, right? Maybe you are, maybe you aren't.
Sure.
But, set that expectation of just being out in the wild and walking and just, like being at peace. You're not on your phone. You're not at work. You're not on your computer. You're not.
Enjoy the experience.
Yeah. All you're hearing is the wind. It's just like absorb that.
Yeah.
I would probably also say like guys just getting into it or wanting to get into it is, I've gotten a lot of my buddies into it over the years. Is go with a friend who has the dog,
sure,
who has the land connection, who has 10
kind of do a test drive with it a little bit even,
a test drive or just like that might make your experience that much more better. I'm not saying don't go out by yourself and do a solo run and hey, I don't have anything going on this Saturday. I'm going out to northeastern Colorado, and I'm going to chase roosters on public land. Do it.
Yeah.
But have that expectation that there's probably a lot of other guys doing that same thing with dogs and whatnot. So just set your expectation. But if you do have that buddy, who is has the hunting dogs, has, whatever it might be, the experience is pick that guy's brain.
Sure. Ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask.
Show the interest in, and you'll get the call. Yep. The guy will, hey, we're going next weekend.
Sure.
And be that guy who's just like, I'm always telling Jackson, he's in baseball now, like, hey, be the coachable guy. If you're going with your buddy, who's this veteran hunter, has got dogs and is working these fields in certain ways, ask the question, why are we hunting it like this?
That's such a good point.
Because, like Todd, our buddy Todd, he's like the most coachable guy because he asks so many questions. Why do we do it this way?
Yeah.
Why
are we working this way in the field when I think we should be going the other way?
Yeah.
Oh, here's why. Here's X, Y, and Z.
Because the wind's blowing in our face.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that.
Yeah.
The dogs need to be able to smell those.
Why are we starting on this end of the field? Like all those little nuances. What about this with the dog? What does that mean when the dog gets really low and it's birdie? I mean, it means he's getting close. Yeah.
The dog goes on point, like we were talking about, 50 yards away. Do I tippy toe up there?
Or should I start fixing my shoelace? No,
right,
get your butt up to the dog.
So just be like that. Just be like the sponge.
I'm really glad you said that.
You can use, you can learn so much. If you take one takeaway of, knocking on a farmer's door, wow, this is how you do it. Yeah. I can do that. That's how we all learn everything, right? That's how, snow goose, we were talking about snow goose hunting, is I remember going out with a guy and I was that sponge. I'd never done it. Hey, Jeff, why do we do it this way? Why do we set up the decoys? How come our blinds are here? How come we're not shooting at those geese when these geese are here? Yeah. All that stuff applies to every hunting scenario.
Yeah.
Applies to pheasant hunting. Why aren't we hunting this cover here? Yep.
Totally. Don't be afraid to ask those questions.
Don't be afraid to ask the questions.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
All right, brother. How can people stay in touch with you? What's the best way for them to contact you? Maybe if they have questions on Paxton gear, want to follow you on social media.
Yeah. So I'm super new in this. So we're actually, the website is still being built. I'm working with a company now that's building it out, and that's just going to be PaxtonGear.com. But I'm on Instagram at PaxtonGear.com or at PaxtonGear. But you can email me too. You and I are cut of the same cloth. We love talking hunting.
Oh, we're constantly just
talking
texting
deer, hunting, birds,
all day long,
whatever it is.
We're on an hour 42 of this podcast right now.
I love it.
feel there are so many more. Things
but you can email
about.
me, Matt at Paxton Gear, PAXTON Gear.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
okay, awesome.
Just fun talking and.
Yeah,
this has been a blast.
Well, I am for sure going to have you back on. I cannot wait to meet this new pup in this summer. Hopefully, that you're picking up.
Yeah.
Hopefully, get him out in the field this year.
Totally. Yeah.
You're gonna. Yeah. He'll be good age.
I would think so. It could be timing wise. Could be.
Get him some early exposure.
Yeah. What would that be? 4 months.
Yeah. Around that.
Because what was Gunner?
He was 2 months in September when I picked him up.
So about the same.
I don't know if I should have did this or not. So I brought him. I picked him up. It's September 9th, September 13th.
Oh, you went on your.
I drove him out. To Nebraska. Yeah. And he did great. It was purely just along for the company.
Yes.
The wife didn't want a new puppy at home without me there, so it worked out. And he's actually turned in. I think because I took him on so many trips this year in the car, he's become a very well-mannered dog in the kennel, in the car, good traveler.
Oh, yeah.
So if anything, again, I didn't really hunt him at all this year, but I got him the exposure where he's a very well-mannered dog in the hotels.
You got the foundation. Yeah.
That's great. So if anyone out there is getting a dog late in the season, I know everyone says get a spring puppy. Timing-wise, it works better, but don't be afraid to pick up a dog.
And get him in the field.
Yeah,
totally.
Absolutely.
That's fun.
So Matt, thank you so much for jumping on this podcast, and we'll for sure be talking a lot more.
Heck yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Will.
Well, that is a wrap of episode 7 of the Upland Rookie Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And Matt, thank you for your time. We easily could have talked for another hour or two. That's what happens when you get people together who are passionate about bird dogs and hunting. Well, as promised, I have a giveaway announcement from Dakota 283. For the Upland Rookie listeners, you can win 2 items. one package, both items, one winner is going to walk away with a Dakota 283 prize pack, I'm going to call it. Okay, so here it is. A Dine and Dash or a Dash watering system. Dine and Dash is a food and water system, and the Dash, the 3.5 is what I use, is a watering system. Holds 3.5 gallons of water. Leave it in your kennel, around your house, bring it with you on hunting trips, whatever. It's amazing. But wait, there's more. You also can win a Dakota 283 G3 medium kennel. Yes, you heard me right. An entire kennel and a Dine and Dash or a Dash watering system. Both those items, one lucky winner will walk away with or be shipped these items to your house from Dakota 283. So stay tuned in the coming weeks for specific details on how to enter this giveaway. But please start getting in the habit of sharing these episodes on social media. Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, whatever it might be. Share it in your story. Share a little bit what you liked about the episode. Also make a post on your Instagram feed, just a regular post. I would really appreciate it. It's going to help this podcast just reach more hunters and bird dog people just like you. So again, stay tuned for more details on how to enter this giveaway. It's a G3 medium kennel from Dakota, as well as a watering Dine and Dash or Dash system. Really excited and very thankful to Dakota for allowing me to give these away to my listeners. Well, that's it for now. Until next week, put some miles on your boots, work behind your favorite bird dog, and do something this week to help get your dog ready for season. It'll be here before we know it. Take care.